In the previous example, Jim and Cindy had pretty detailed preferences. They each wanted one room painted and then as many flowers as they could plant. In most examples, you will not be given any information about what the individuals want to consume. So here, we don't know how much meat or how much potatoes they would like to consume or produce. Instead, we'll detail all of the production possibilities with and without specialization. So to do that, we make a graph called a production possibility frontier, which is really wordy, so it's abbreviated PPF. This graph will show all of the combinations of meat and potatoes that it's possible to produce given the resource constraint. In this case, our resource is time. We'll begin by plotting the farmer's PPF and the rancher's PPF separately, then join them together to show the benefits of specialization. So you'll notice here that we have potatoes on the x-axis and meat on the y-axis. We simply want to plot all of the combinations of meat and potatoes that the farmer can produce in 40 hours. So in 40 hours, the farmer can produce all meat, all potatoes, or some combination of meat and potatoes. The simplest way to plot the production possibility frontier is to begin by thinking about the two extremes, all meat or all potatoes. If the farmer spends all 40 hours a week producing meat, then the farmer would be able to produce just 2 pounds of meat and no time left for potatoes, so 0 pounds of potatoes. So 1 point on the farmer's production possibility frontier will be 2 pounds of meat and 0 pounds of potatoes. Alternatively, the farmer could spend all of his time producing potatoes. If the farmer spends 40 hours a week producing potatoes, he'll end up with 4 pounds of potatoes, but 0 pounds of meat. So this is another point along the farmer's production possibility frontier. The assumption that we've made here is that each pound of meat takes the same amount of time to produce, and likewise for potatoes. So because the farmer requires a constant time investment to produce these products, the line connecting these 2 points is a straight line. And you can see that other points along the production possibility frontier include 1 pound of meat and 2 pounds of potatoes. But there are infinite combinations of meat and potatoes that the farmer can produce in 40 hours. So this line represents the farmer's production possibility frontier. And now we'll plot the production possibility frontier for the rancher. For the rancher, 40 hours spent producing meat would yield 40 pounds of meat. And no potatoes. 40 hours producing potatoes would yield 5 pounds of potatoes and no meat. And then, of course, we can connect those points to plot the rancher's production possibility frontier. So what does the production possibility frontier tell us? Well, it tells us our production possibilities, but it also tells us something about the trade-off between producing meat and producing potatoes. Remember that resources are scarce. We only have 40 hours a week. That means that producing more meat means producing fewer potatoes and vice versa. We can illustrate this trade-off by looking at the slope of the production possibility frontier. We can interpret the slope of the production possibility frontier as the opportunity cost of the x-axis good. In this case, that's potatoes. Do you remember how we calculate the slope? Slope is rise over run. What does that mean? It means change in the y-axis over change in the x-axis. So for every unit we go over on the x-axis, if I increase production of potatoes by 1 pound, how much do I go down on the y-axis? So you can see that the slope of the production possibility frontier represents the quantity of meat we have to give up in order to produce 1 additional pound of potatoes. In other words, the opportunity cost of producing potatoes. Of course, the slopes are negative, representing the trade-off between the two goods. In order to get more of one good, we have to produce less of the other. And the steeper the slope, the larger the opportunity cost. So our production possibility frontier illustrates practically all of the potential possible points of production and also the trade-off between the two goods in terms of opportunity cost.